I had a lot of people to show me little tricks of the trade when I was at Bud Mary's, and they taught me, hey, you take time to do this one thing, it's going to pay off.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. This week, I'm excited to welcome Captain Deb Deo to the show. Deb is a charter captain out of the Florida Keys and has an amazing story to tell on how she got where she is today. She offers inshore, backcountry, and offshore fishing in the Florida Keys, and she runs a couple different styles of boats based on the type of trip. One is a 16-foot Chaos Boatworks Bonefish with the 60 horsepower Yamaha, and she also runs a 32-foot Game Fisherman Sportfish named Gypsy Girl. Talk about inspiring. Well, before we get into it, I want to do a quick update on all the things going on. I've mentioned this before. I feel like 2021 is a building year for what's to come in 2022, because here we are already toward the end of April, and I feel like things still haven't really gotten off the ground yet. But finally got the new Key West boat back home and in the water this past week, and I've started taking her out to get the new Garmin Live Scope dialed in and all figured out. We had to add a patented mount from Cornfield Crappie Gear, which solved our issue with the Auto Deploy Minn Kota Alterra trolling motor and the Live Scope mount. And I went with the Summit Perspective View mount for the Live Scope, which is really awesome. The boat is now having the wrap installed, so I'm hoping that gets done quickly so I can get it back in the water and take it out a few more times before we get on the road to Lake Hickory. As far as the new Lance Truck Camper mobile podcast studio goes, Lance made the official announcement about our new partnership and their support for this podcast last week, which was exciting. We also received a shipment of 2 new lithium batteries and a new circuit board that will support the lithium conversion, so I'm excited to get that installed. The problem is finding someone to do it. Most camper dealerships are already booked up well into the fall, and I may be watching some YouTube videos and trying to attempt this myself. Speaking of being all booked up, all the campgrounds near Lake Hickory were already full when I went to make a reservation for the next tournament. Yet another lesson learned. I asked Kayla Jacobson how she and Carl do it, and she said they make their reservations the minute the tournament schedule for the year is released. So that's what I'm going to be doing going forward. Luckily, I was able to get in at Cane River, and it looks like Logan Martin shouldn't be an issue either. When we get back from Hickory, we plan on doing some traveling around with the camper, and I'm super excited about that. I have a big trip coming up the first week of June to walleye fish on Lake Erie with Mark I Sport Fishing. The walleye should be on fire that time of the year, and I cannot wait to get my walleye fix. I'm going to be bringing a very special guest with me, so stay tuned for that as well. Finally, I hope you're catching the Women's World of Fishing Monday Night Takeovers with Barbara Harris and myself. These are super fun and interactive. Last night we revealed our personal favorite baits, and in case you missed it, I might just re-release that conversation on next week's episode. It was so much fun. You'll have to wait until next week to find out for sure. Okay, that's enough catching up. I'm excited for y'all to meet Captain Deb Deo, so let's welcome her to the podcast. Captain Deb Deo, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been following you on social media for a while now, and some of the pictures I see and posts are so amazing. So I'm really, really excited to share your story with our audience because I feel like it's super inspirational, and that's what the show is all about. So just to kick things off, so you're down in the Keys, which is awesome because that's like the best place to be, in my opinion, for somebody who's into fishing. But you kind of had some experience fishing down there growing up, and that's, from what I understand, what led you to where you're at now. But talk about growing up and getting the opportunity to fish down in the Keys. What was that like?
It was absolutely amazing. my parents introduced me to saltwater fishing, and at age 5, and we would come last day of, we'd come down to the Keys, and I remember I was so excited when I saw the stretch and I saw that bridge, because I knew it was paradise time. And we didn't go back till like 2 days before school would start back, and I spent my school age here. Also spent time in the Outer Banks as well, fishing OBX. But in the summer here, it was amazing. And we would fish the winter. We'd come in for 2 weeks. Anytime school was out, we would fish here. I learned how to fish offshore with my father. He was a mahi fisherman. He absolutely loved dolphin. And I think that's probably my favorite thing to do too, because he did it and my mom did it. And we did it together as a family. I also fish inshore. I got my first probably little boat when I was 10 years old. We would stay around Big Pine Key and, go out to little tiny flats and just kind of sit there and chill. And that's how I started fishing here in the Keys. It's the sport fishing capital of the world is Islamorada, Florida. And it is the most paradise to a fisherman. You are correct. It is one of the best places in the world, and anywhere in the Keys, actually. But Islamorada has that Gulf Stream that dips in closer than any other key. So your fishing in your Gulf Stream is a little closer, but it's a little better for the water temperatures and everything else. So, but anywhere from Key Largo to Key West, we have phenomenal fishing, offshore, inshore. You're going to come here. You're going to be so excited. You're going to want to move here.
That's what I'm afraid of. It's like I've always said I've never been to Hawaii, and I feel like if I went there, I wouldn't want to leave, and that might be why I haven't been to the Keys. But I am super excited to get down there, and I'm glad that our paths has crossed, so now maybe I have a little more opportunity to get down there than I had before. So I'd love to go fishing with you sometime and do a in person, another, catch up interview, because we're doing this over the phone today, but that would be amazing to get down there.
Absolutely. I would love to put you on a Florida Keys bonefish.
Ooh, yeah.
I've got all these new little ocean flats that I'm exploring now, and it just puts butterflies in your stomach, just chasing these fish. So yeah. That's what I'm doing right now. And it's an amazing thing. And I'm very blessed to be here. And it took a lot of people for me to get to where I'm at.
So our stories are a little bit, they're different, but they're almost kind of similar, because I grew up in Minnesota fishing for walleye, and that's just what I fell in love with. I love the competitive part of fishing, because I had an older brother, and it was always like, who's going to catch the most fish? And, walleye was kind of the coveted fish for us up there because it's such a good eating fish. And so it was just extra special to be able to bring in a nice big walleye, to take home and, have for dinner basically. But, I went into a career in the music industry. That was kind of my other passion growing up. And so I worked in the music business for 16 years before I really got back into fishing and started this podcast and kind of started working on a transition into, getting my captain's license and getting on the water and outdoors. And so you worked in nursing for a lot of years. And then what prompted you to just take the plunge and move to the Keys?
Well, that's, I just jumped 2 feet. I was sitting on the couch one day, and I said, you know what? I'm watching Waypoint TV. I'm watching Discovery Channel. I'm watching these guys, and they're fishing every day. And I'm sitting there basically crying at the TV. I want to do that. I want to do that. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, let's do it. Wow. Jumped 2 feet, took $300 in my truck, and I went south.
Wow.
But there's always different things that makes you change your life in certain ways. There's got to be something there that makes you change your life. I was getting ready to get divorced and didn't know where my next path was going. And I decided, I was like, might as well just do it. So I changed my life, and it really did work out for me. And I'm excited, and I did do nursing for 15 years, and in a state of emergency or something like that, I would definitely hang up my fishing rods and pick up my stethoscope again. But it's not something that I have a passion for anymore. And I believe that in the medical field, when you lose your passion for taking care of people, you need to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And my passion changed. My passion changed for showing people how to smile on the water and becoming. And my childhood dream was to become a charter captain here in the Florida Keys, and I have done it. And to see the smile on people's face when you catch them that big fish instead of sticking a needle in their arm and watching them cry is sweet.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's so amazing, because there's so many people that don't have the courage, I guess, to take that kind of a leap. And I just find that so inspiring that you did it, What was the process like for you getting your captain's license? 'Cause there's a lot that goes into that, I know. And a lot of time needs to be spent on the water. How did you go about that process?
Absolutely. I worked at a bait shop, Bud Mary's Marina, and I had a bait skiff that I used before work and after work. And I was on the water a lot as a child. I fished freshwater in North Carolina. I've been a boater for a long time. And I knew that I wanted to take people out, and I knew I wanted to show them the experience. And in order to do that, I had to obtain my captain's license.
Mm-hmm.
I would work 8 hours in the tackle shop, but I would be catching bait or, before, or fishing in the evening time. I fished with a lot of the charter captains out of Bud Mary's Marina, and, they have been the most positive influence that I could ever have. It took a community to build me. It took a fleet. It took a fleet to raise me as an out of control teenager, but but I've done it. But I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those charter captains and the wives and everybody that had my back and that support. But it did take water time, and it took dedication. I was the first one at the marina that morning, and I was the last one to leave at night.
Wow.
And I dedicated 3 years of constant, no other hobbies, no relationships, no anything else. Fish. That's all you do. You fish, you eat, you breathe, you sleep fishing.
Wow.
And you have to be dedicated. If you really want to get somewhere fast in the world, you have to put your nose down and go to the grind and do it every day and get up and do it. You can't lay in the bed, say, oh, I don't think I'm going to do this today.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work that way. You got to get up. And it does take a lot inside of a person to overcome things and to get there. But the only thing in this world that's stopping you is yourself.
Yep.
So once you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Yeah, to do that in such a short amount of time that you were able to do it. I mean, moving to the Keys in the summer of 2017 and then starting your charter business in the summer of 2020, that's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is. And it was a 3-year journey, and I went out with a lot of charter captains. I did that, but my childhood growing up in the Keys enabled me to short period that. I got my captain's license, and I take people fishing, and I like to trophy hunt. That's what I do. That's what I love to do. I love to chase bonefish. I love to chase sailfish. I love to chase snook. I love to chase all kinds of things, but it just being in a boat with somebody in that smile is what it's all about. And that's what that journey was about. And that journey was about inspiring women to say, yes, you can back your boat down the boat ramp. Yes, you can go out there and you can catch a fish on your own. Yes, you can do it. Here I am. I'm doing it. I'm living proof. You guys can do it as well.
If she can do it, you can do it.
That's right.
So talk about your charters. You've got, from what I understand, a couple different boats that you run. And
I do.
For different targets, I guess. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, here in the Keys, we have such a diverse fishery here that it's unbelievable. You can fish offshore, you can fish inshore, you can fish flats. And to do that, you have to have different types of boats to get where you want to go. I run a 32-foot game fisherman called the Gypsy Girl out of Key Largo Fisheries, and that's offshore. And I run it with one crew member, a mate, and then I also have a flats boat, 16-foot Chaos Boat Works, and it's a bonefish edition, and I can get 5 inches of water floating, so I can go anywhere I want to go.
Nice. Here
in the Keys in the backcountry.
Very cool. It's so impressive, like that game fisherman. You don't see a lot of female captains running a boat like that.
No, she's a single screw too. And
oh, wow.
I grew up with my parents. My father was a big mechanic head, I guess. He was, and I spent time building race car motors beside of him. So the mechanics of a boat is something that I look at. And she's got such a beautiful little Yanmar 315 with a turbo in her, which is a little small diesel. She's a single motor. She gets fabulous fuel mileage.
Mm.
And I mean, she's just a cute little boat, but she's a single screw. So you don't have two motors to get her in a slip. You have to drive her in. So she's one of the most difficult boats I've ever driven, but one of the funnest.
Have you had any scary situations so far out there with like weather or anything?
I did have a scary situation. I come out the channel one time and, the whole, everything shut down on me. The alarms went off and some stuff. And being an older boat, she's going to have some hiccups here and hiccups there. And it's your job as a captain to get under there and figure out what's wrong so you can get back to fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And, at this point, I couldn't do anything. We were broken. So I had to call another friend of mine, another charter captain, and he came and got my clients off board, and I had to get towed in. And that was the most humblest experience because coming through there being towed is like one of the worst things you could ever do as a captain. But, you will have those hiccups here and there. Mm-hmm. And nothing goes right 100% of the time. But knock on wood, I haven't had to been towed any farther than the canal yet.
Nice. Well, good. Yeah, people see, like, on social media, the big, pictures of the fish and everything, and they're like, oh man, that's the life, you're living the dream. But a lot of times people don't realize everything that goes into it. There's all the hard work that you've put in, all the investment, and then just, it's hard work, right? I mean, even you get the reward of the smiles on people's faces, and that kind of pays for it in and of itself. But there's so much that goes into being a charter captain that people don't think about, I think.
Yes, there are. It's a lot of hard work, and these boys around the fleet here, Bud and Mary's Marina, Whale Harbor, Postcardy, and Key Largo Fisheries, coming up through the Keys at the major marinas, they're running doubles every day right now. They're running full days right now. Those boys are my heroes. They are really, really, really grinding it right now. It takes me a couple days to recover from a trip because I'm 40 years old. I'm not a spring chicken no more. And I have worked hard, but, I limit myself because I know what my capabilities are. Mm-hmm. I can't run more than 3 or 4 charters a week, but still, that's still a lot for what we do here. Mm-hmm. But these guys that do this every day, they'll run 10, 15 days at a time. And, but they have a whole crew behind them. They have somebody, they have a mate that rigs everything. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of solo fishing on my boat, my skiff. That is probably one of my favorite things to do is solo skiff and catching bonefish from my platform. And that takes time on the water and an investment of time and money and gear and, make sure those knots are right and make sure that hog rod knot is perfect and, make sure that hook is sharp before you put it in the water. I mean, there's so many little tiny, tiny things. But, I had a lot of people to show me little tricks of the trade when I was at Bud Mary's. And they taught me, hey, you take time to do this one thing, it's going to pay off. So just as long as you have your as long as you go prepared, what's the Boy Scout thing? Be prepared.
Right.
As long as you're prepared, everything's going to be fine.
That's awesome. So when you talk about solo skiff, so you're saying you're just out there by yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I do a lot of hunting by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of scouting by myself. I'll find fish. Bonefish are fish that hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And you get them by sight casting. You can dead boat them. You can fish for them by fly, by, spin rod. You can fish for them anyway. But finding the fish and how they're going to feed on the tidal, on the keys, is just, it's a whole science to it. Fishing is a science. And when you go out there by yourself and you're able to put yourself in the middle of the environment, you can tell what they eat. You can tell how they move. So that way, when you go back out with a client, you don't have to know what all those things, because you already know.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of scouting myself solo.
There's something about just being out there by yourself, isn't there?
Oh, it's serenity.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's, you get out there and you don't see a boat around you. I can go 30 miles out in the bay and never see another boat. Mm. It's untouched territory. It's hunting grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it does something to your soul, and it makes you have an addiction to it. And you got to feed that. And by feeding that, you can bring people along with
mm-hmm.
you on your adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what my plans are to bring people along and show them what I get to look at and how blessed I am and to do what I do every day.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think that's why I'm so itching to get my Key West boat in the water here, so I can start going out and figuring things out, on my own and getting it dialed in. And there's just something so exciting about that.
It's very exciting to put your boat in. I go to the boat ramp here. I have a community boat ramp, but it's oceanside. Sometimes I fish on the bay. We have about 13, 14 miles where you can cross between the island. So I'll put my boat in at Bayside, and there'll be somebody at the boat ramp. They're like, "Hey, you're doing this by yourself? Can I help you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I do this quite frequently. I'm good." And, they sit there and they're like all in amazement, and it's just something that you do. And you get in your boat and you get out there and no one can touch you.
Mm-hmm.
You're in your own thing. And how sweet it is to go after something that you target and then produce it. Mm. It's not about the money anymore.
Right. It's that feeling of accomplishment. And,
yes.
And, and that's a lot what this show is about, is to inspire women to get to that point where you don't need to rely on somebody else to help you. Like, if you want to go out there and do it, just go out there and do it on your own, and it takes practice. It takes, maybe having somebody to help you along the way and teach you things. But when you mm-hmm. get to that point, there's this, nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah. And absolutely. I mean, I've had my falls, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I've been out and trying to get my boat off the boat ramp and slipping on algae and fall down and bust my head open. I mean, there's things that happen but you've got to be prepared for them. And, if you don't do it, you're never going to learn. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you get hurt doing things, but then again, you're never going to do that again.
Right. You learn, some lessons you learn the hard way. I don't know if you heard the episode I did, it was not this past fall, but the fall before that. I was down in Florida for the Redfish Roadie road trip with Jen Ripple and Heather Hodson, from United Women on the Fly. But, we were down there, and I had a guide took us out of, the Everglades, and he took us to Jewel Key, and there's a porta potty there. So it was me and one other lady. And so he thought that would be a nice place for us to eat our lunch and use the restroom there. and he had nosed this boat up on the shore. It was pretty windy that day, and then he put his power poles down, and then he got off the boat to go check the outhouse to make sure that it didn't have any raccoons or snakes in it before we used it. And when we all got off the boat, well, that of course shifted the weight, and I look back and the nose of his boat had drifted a little bit off the shore. And then, so he started walking back down there to, fix it. And by the time he got down there, the wind had kicked up and blew his boat off the shore. And so he thankfully left his life jacket on, cause I had taken mine off and everything I had was in the boat. And, he had to get in the water and kind of start swimming after his boat. And every time he'd get close, the wind would blow and push it further and further away. And his life jacket inflated. And like I say, thank goodness he had that on, because he never did catch the boat. And then he had to swim back to the island. And,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and he was like really winded by the time he got back. If he did not have that life jacket on, I don't think he would have made it. So, but anyways, so we're stranded on this island, and thankfully he had a waterproof cell phone, and he had like one little half bar of service, and he was able to call his neighbor to come get us and get the boat. The boat ended up drifted quite a ways, but it ended up the power poles caught onto some reef or something, and so it didn't go super, super far, which was good. But anyway, all that to say that was a lesson that he will never have to learn again.
No, people make fun of me when I put my pole in the sand or the mud, and then I go tie my bow off to the island that I'm at. They all laugh at me, and I'm like, well, you never know.
You never know.
Yeah, that's a little scary. I mean, I was carrying e-verb with me.
Mm-hmm. And he did have that as well, so I knew
that's good.
We could use that. And again, thank goodness, because I was attached to his life jacket, so thank goodness he didn't take it off.
Yeah, and all safety procedures, e-verbs, cell phones, all that stuff. When I'm up fishing in the Everglades, usually I don't have phone service, you know. So I always file a float plan with someone I know, my mother, my son, somebody here, in Key Largo, and say, hey, look, I'm going here. If I'm not home by here, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And especially when I fish by myself. When I'm with somebody else, it's not, as terrible, because you always have a partner with you. But when I solo fish, I always let people know where I'm at, and filing those float plans and having a life jacket on, having, your throwable, and making sure that you're fine. A lot of the fishing that I do is in 2 to 4 feet. So, I mean, if I fall out of the boat, I'm going to get right back up and jump back in the boat, unlike you, that you fish in deeper waters. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to shout out to one of my sisters, in fishing, Carolyn, Stash. She has a company called Atlas Tracks, and I'm going to put one on the Gypsy Girl. And your family member, if they're scared or if they, don't know where you're at, they can pull up your GPS location on the computer. And she has access to that. And that's one of the best things that I've ever thought of. And she's really good at putting that on your boat and feeling that safety in mind. So if you have a big charter boat, look her up. Her name is Carolyn Stash, and she's with Atlas Tracks.
Awesome. We'll check that out. And you recently did an event with some women I saw on Facebook. Can you talk a little bit about what that was?
Sure. I went and talked to them at a Wild Women on the Water. It's an Upper Keys group, all women. They like to kayak, they like to fish, they like to just be on the water here in the Keys. It's about 100 members, and they all get together and do things together. And I went and talked to them, told them my story, and told them what, some tips on fishing. And it's just a really, really cool thing to see that there's a lot of women into the sport that don't get recognized and that do their own little thing. And it's good to go in and say, hey, if you need some help on your boat, I would be happy to jump on your boat. It's all about giving back. It's all about bringing women into the sport and trying to promote that.
Very cool. And I heard, I talked to Captain Debbie Hansen. Do you know her?
I do know of her. She is wonderful.
Yeah, she's awesome. We were talking a while back about the Coast Guard Auxiliary, which is the volunteer arm of the Coast Guard. I actually used to volunteer with them for a couple years until my schedule just got way too busy. I couldn't keep up with all the activities with them, but they have a course that people can take, women in particular, called Suddenly in Command, where they teach women how to, if something were to happen, like say, typically their husband drives the boat all the time, but things can happen out there. You could have a heart attack or, some kind of injury or something where you need to be able to at least get the boat back safely, And so that's kind of a cool thing that hopefully, I don't know if they're offering that now with, still with the, pandemic kind of stuff going on, but hopefully soon they'll be able to offer those again. And maybe they do some virtually, I'm not sure, but that's a cool thing that people could look into.
We have a great Coast Guard station here, Coast Guard Islamorada. Wonderful. I'll go down and talk to the Coast Guard and see if I can see what kind of classes they have and maybe promote that to these ladies. That would be a good thing. Yeah. I didn't know that class was there. That's wonderful. I'd love to network that out. Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. Keep me posted on what you find out on that, and I'll share it on the podcast. So you've got some exciting things coming up, maybe some you can't quite talk about just yet, but anything coming up that you want to share?
Well, I'm just doing a lot of fishing. I'm doing a little bit of videos. I'm not sure where that's gonna take me. But I'm real big about sisterhood fishing. You can go out to sisterhoodfishing.com. Wanda Stewart, Terry Huffmaster, Carolyn Stash, Lori Health out in San Diego. A lot of us, we see each other on social media and we see each other fishing. And I have a vision of bringing us together. Along with Wanda Stewart, I went and saw her down in Louisiana and got on some redfish. She's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Very cool. I need to have her on the podcast sometime soon.
Yeah, and what I'd like to do is bring some ladies that fish all the time. Terry Huffmaster, she's coming in a couple weeks down here to fish with me, and we're gonna do some filming, and just show them this fishery, and maybe go up. And she put me on a nice gator trout in Dark Harbor when I went up and saw her, Dark Island, in the Bend of Florida. So that was fun. And just see where things go. I am still chartering. I'm going to do some special bonefish charters. I'm doing some scouting now. I've got I've done a few podcasts. I've got one coming out soon, and then yours, of course, coming out. So, yeah, just a lot of the media stuff. I'm probably going to take a trip up north and, just travel around and live life and have fun and fish as much as I can, because that's all I want to do.
That's what it's all about. And that other podcast you got coming up is with Tom Rowland, and Tom's podcast is part of the Waypoint Outdoor Collective, which the Woman Angler and Adventurer is a part of. So, we'll be excited to hear that. And then maybe we can get together if your schedule allows when I go over to Hickory, North Carolina here in first part of May for the next Women's Pro Bass Tour tournament.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Absolutely. I'm from a little town called Catfish, North Carolina. It's in Catawba County. I grew up in fishing the lakes, Lake Hickory, Lake Lookout, Lake Norman. So that's my neck of the woods up there. So yeah. I would absolutely love to come meet you. We'll make that happen. Absolutely. So I'm coming to North Carolina again.
Awesome. What would be really cool is if we could work it out to where we could fish together, practice fish days.
Let's do that.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Absolutely. Let me put you on some toads. I know where some are.
I need all the help I can get.
Oh, no, you don't. You're good. Oh, no. You're going to teach me how to fish.
So bluewatergirlcharters.com, and then you're also on Facebook and Instagram. So people should definitely follow along there with your adventures if they're not already. And we will look forward to connecting again, hopefully in North Carolina, and then especially hopefully in the Keys would be really, really cool.
Oh, yeah. Let me come down here and so I can put you on a Florida Keys bonefish.
Love it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate you letting me tell my story. And I look forward to meeting you in person in May when we go fishing on Lake Hickory.
Woo-hoo.